Hello there, Mr. Anthony Gramuglia. Hopefully, I said your name right. My name is Michael. I tend to go by Magnus on this platform called YouTube. And I just have a question for you in terms of a poll that you made recently. So, to get straight to the chase, I would, based on the background of the video, I would ask, how would you craft a Disney villain? Because a few days ago or so, you made a poll saying what topic you should cover in a future video, and one of the options was the downfall of the Disney villain, and that was either the middle or last voted option on the poll, and that at least brought a little bit of pain to me because I've seen the thumbnail and the concept of the video across YouTube, and one of the videos that I've actually seen would be the Saber Spark and his what ruined Disney villains, and he fully explains how Disney was the ones that ruined their own villains, etc. So my burning question would be, how would you craft a Disney villain? And this is also coming off of the fact that I recently reacted to your video on Jurassic Park and the Jurassic franchise and dinosaurs in media as a whole not being as sharp, as gritty, as terrifying as they could be if given more horror elements. So, well, I want to ask you, how would you craft a Disney villain that can stand among some of the villains you see on the screen here? And I wanted to go a little bit into it in my own thoughts, saying how I think that we all want a new set of Disney villains like the ones on this screen, and those that stand above the rest, that champion Disney villainy. But I feel like that not everyone, including myself in this, that we don't fully understand what that means. And what I mean by, let me get deep into it. So I want to go over three topics. One, how we may not, or some of the general audience may not have a full idea of what making a Disney villain means, to what it would take, like Disney having the confidence to do it, like they know what it takes, but do they have the confidence to do it? And three, the overarching, like an aftermath problem of a potential oversensitive audience. And then at the end, I would at least want to put my own 2 cents in on, if I made a Disney villain, how would I do it? So let me just get straight into it. So how I would want, so the part about knowing what a Disney villain means. So with these villains on the screen, we immediately see these personalities, these characters that bring a sense of nostalgia, a sense of threat, a sense of urgency, a power behind them, no matter if they have this great magical ability or just bare human ability and ingenuity. But you've worked with the YouTuber Red from Overly Sarcastic Productions. Great YouTube channel. They, as you likely know, they have a series of videos called Trope Talks, and there are two videos that I specifically want to hone in on: the pure villains video and the queer coded villains video. So, the pure villains video honestly shows proof that despite what many intellectuals or common people may say, the idea that pure evil villains are lame, or they're lazy, or they don't matter no more, I stand with Red saying that's false. What matters with a pure evil villain, as far as and any other villain, is, are they utilized and executed effectively? Are they executed in a good way? Are they utilized right? Because a sympathetic villain can be utilized poorly. A anti-hero oh, or a villainous protagonist can be utilized poorly, and it won't matter what kind of villain they are. And Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is honestly a perfect example of how you can take a sympathetic villain, a force of nature villain, and a pure evil villain, utilize them into the best of their ability, where they don't overstay their welcome, where they don't take away too much from the story, and they have a part to play in it, and they have a role to play and something to add. So, so what do I mean by knowing what making a Disney villain means? So, part the other video that Red from Overly Sarcastic Productions in her Trope Top said in the queer coded villains video is that a great number of these classic Disney villains, much of the ones on this screen, they were very queer coded. A very prominent one being, for example, Ursula from The Little Mermaid. That being because with making protagonists, protagonists are often needing to be in this small line or this small box where what is seen as good, normal, heroic, paragon, or at least like what the character either is or will become, um, sets them out to be almost the most vanilla of the group. Some of them being, for example, the Red Ranger in most Power Ranger teams, Luke Skywalker, as much hate as I may get for saying that, Luke Skywalker, how he looks in A New Hope, Anakin, honestly, Anakin or Obi-Wan in Phantom Menace, Daisy Ridley Rey in The Force Awakens, how the main hero of the story is going to look the most normal, if that makes sense, or the most protagonisty, while the side characters, the foils, the lancers, the big guy, the smart guy, the heart, and the villain, of course, they get to have these wide range of traits, each whether it be trauma, injuries, conditions, and whether it be mental or physical, that make them different. And especially the villain, you can go all out with this on what they look like, how they act, how they feel, what their mindset is in terms of morals, love, relationships, it's all that, because they exist. They tend to exist outside of the social norm. So anything that is deemed like not normal or wrong by the general consensus is put on these villains. So what I fear about making a Disney villain that can stand the test of time and stand and sit among these great villains right here and others that are the champions of this is that doing so, because of how many of them do come across or unintentionally came across as queer coded, I fear that in order to make another Disney villain like this, you would honestly may have to give them like almost queer coded traits, that you'd have to give them a character trait or their fashion or a quirk of theirs that makes them different, makes them off. And the risk that I see with that is potentially doing it wrong or doing it too much or doing it in a way that puts a bad light on people of the LGBTQIA community. Because since back when like The Little Mermaid was made and all that, the way the LGBTQIA plus community was seen back then is very different than how we look at the community now. So it's almost a landmine, a minefield, wanting to touch that, unless you're willing to make the protagonist is the same and do it like a two characters of the same cloth, uh, ending up in different end goals or different destinations. For example, how in many interpretations or deeper research of the story, Jafar was a street rat, much like Aladdin, but he ended up completely different. Or Yzma, as you hopefully can see at the top um, of my screen, and with the shirt that I'm wearing, that at that Yzma and Cusco start off honestly in the same boat. They both view peasants as beneath them, or their common folk as beneath them. That being a ruler is a title of power, not getting the concept of the responsibility and the duty that they have for their people. Where Yzma stays in that spot throughout the film. Cusco has to be humbled and realize that he's not that great, and that not everything's about him. And while he still is a narcissist at the end of the movie, he still has his own self-loving traits. He's more of a more caring person, and he understands more the idea and the responsibility of duty and responsibility. Then you also have Scar, who my personal favorite Disney villain of all time, who wants the mantle of king simply for the title, simply for the power that it brings, not the responsibility that comes with it. So, unless they're willing to take two of the LGBTQIA community and have them be in the same starting place, but go in different direction, end up in different destinations, that could work. That could work, at least to me. So, I fear that like watching the trope talk from overly sarcastic productions, great video as all of them are, apart from certain small points that I personally disagree with. It, like, in order to make these villains like Disney villains, I fear you have to go about it the way they were made, or uh, modernize it to focus on problems in today's society, and say that certain mindsets, certain ways of life, ways of thinking is wrong, or a certain way of going about it is wrong, and being willing to say that. Okay, so that's I spent too much time on point number one. Point number two, having the confidence. Disney having the confidence to do it. So I feel that if Disney approached making such a villain in the level of confidence that they do with making their live action remakes, that I personally don't have a problem with, um, um, that if they approached making a villain that can be willing to come across in a way that could offend people, or say that my way of living is wrong, if they can approach it with the same level of confidence that they do with the live action remakes, no matter how the internet or the public does have flack against them, but they do it anyway, unless it's like a string of failures. If it's a string of monetary failures, they'll stop. Otherwise, they'll keep chugging at it. If they approached it with that same level of confidence, I think they could pull it off. I think they could pull off a new Disney villain that can stand among the greatest. They just would need to have the courage and the backbone, as it were, to do it and not be afraid of who you will offend, or who you might rub the wrong way, because when you do make something, and you likely know this, Mr. Gramuglia, that when you make something, there is a great chance that someone's going to disagree, whether it be lightly or heavily, and you can't eat, no matter how much you curate your words to say this a certain way, no matter how much you try as hard to get it right to not come across as offensive, it could still come out as that, or unintentionally doing something with no harm at all could unfortunately potentially come across as that. An example with overly sarcastic productions trope talk on the smart guy, how often when shows or movies have a five-man band and they have the smart guy, they tend to give that character traits that could come across as autistic or on the spectrum, whether that be purposeful or non-purposeful, and it could come across in a good way or in a bad way, or in between. So I think Disney can do it. I just think that they maybe, if they could, like, they're still on the mindset of twist villains that many, if not all, I don't think it's all of them, but many of Pixar's movies are built on and stuff like that. But going back to this would be cool. Big example being King Magnifico, because as I have a video on my channel when I first reacted to the Wish trailer, that seeing that first clip of King Magnifico, when I thought he was going to be a simple, like almost a Ursula character, where he's an outcast of society or someone you should stay away from, and everyone knows it. I was ecstatic. I had a look of shock, glee, and excitement at the thought of having a new Disney villain that is just a full on evil. Now, fast forward to Wish coming out. I do enjoy Wish for what it did. The fact that it's the 100th anniversary of the Walt Disney Animation Studios does bring it down. It does honestly bring it down, because that shows how far Disney has come and where they were at then, and a part of where they are now. Especially with corporate meddling and wanting to appease as many people as possible. But like, because what it could have been, and I likely said this in the Jurassic Park video by mistake, what it could have been versus what it is are two drastically different things, but I would say the same is almost with many other films. So I can't get upset or riled up about something that I have no control over, at least to me. So, that's so I feel Disney can do it. I just don't know if I'm certain there are creatives who are more than willing to do it. It's the thing about executives and the brand, the idea of the brand, and the risk of being like seen as the bad guys and stuff like that, seen in a negative light, is what's holding them back, as it were, from doing it, from making new villains of this caliber, at least in my eyes. So okay, so that was one was the rough idea of what a Disney villain is two, Disney having the confidence to do it, three, the inevitable risk of a oversensitive audience. So the reason I say this is because in the past few years, with different shows and stuff that have come out, I've seen the backlash or reaction to things that to me are nonsensical. For example, well, I'll use a few examples, but one being Obi-Wan Kenobi back when it first aired. So, in its depiction of Order 66. Order 66 was depicted in Revenge of the Sith. We know it was a utter massacre. It was a genocide of Jedi, old, middle-aged, young children, all across the board, and you see it from from wide pan shots, and you even see it when darn it, when Bail Organa comes to the Jedi Temple. Well, you see it. and Anakin murdering the younglings in the council room, or right before when it cuts away. But when Obi-Wan Kenobi depicted Order 66 from a training with younglings and a teacher, or I still remember the people who got upset saying that Disney was insensitive given the school shootings that had happened in America. And to me, it's like, one, Disney doesn't have control over what happens in outside, at least outside, like what happens to the schools and stuff, which is still a tragedy. But it's like calling them insensitive when showing another depiction of a genocide that has been depicted previously in Clone Wars season 7 and other or forms of media. Also, Bad Batch did it afterwards. So to say that Obi-Wan Kenobi took it too far, showing another view of Order 66, The Mandalorian season 3, I believe it is as well. Oh, I just felt like that was a moment of oversensitivity on the subject. Right? Then, in terms of, for example, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, apparently there are people who had qualms with the idea of Bowser or threatening Princess Peach to marry him or he will destroy their kingdom and either kill its citizens or enslave all its citizens. And people or content creators were saying that that was too much or something not suitable for children. And when I heard that, I was flabbergasted. I was flabbergasted because that's vanilla villain behavior. That's basic level villain behavior. That's something you would come across in honestly, an E for everyone, E10 plus rated, everyone 10 and up video game with a villain where you have to save a princess or save the kingdom. You'd come across that very kind of threat at in a children's game. So to say that Bowser threatening the whole Mushroom Kingdom if Peach doesn't marry him was too much and not appropriate for children, I'm like, where do we start? Then where do you draw the line? Where do you start? Because unfortunately, due to the world we live in, children are okay, yes, children are inexperienced. They can be dumb, they can be silly, they can be stupid. But throughout, there are children who are smarter than we think. They're smarter than we think. More um, they're more intellectual and they're more perceptive than we give them credit for at times. So because of that, saying that certain actions are too, yes, there are certain actions, certain ideas, certain atrocities that are too much for children to handle, but you have to expose them to at least the basic concept of that at some point. Like, where do we start? What do you start with? Do we like the obvious things like starting off with lying, hurting people, calling people names, stuff like that, punching, kicking, all that. Like you, and then as you grow, you learn more and more and more about what unfortunate, terrible things happen in the world. Because whether we like it or not, the world is going to show us how dark it can be, and it doesn't care what age we are when it happens. It doesn't care what age we are when atrocity happens and when it happens to us. So it's like, if you shelter children for too long, you stunt their growth and you stunt their maturity. I get that exposing it too early can traumatize them, but holding back and sheltering them it won't help. It'll hurt them in the long run, and at least to me. So, oh, like people like cases of an oversensitive audience getting upset at either or yes, unfortunate common things that happen in society today. A, a mirroring entertainment, it can be hard to look at, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be made or it shouldn't be depicted. And on top of that, to me, anyone who was saying like Obi-Wan Kenobi went too far with Order 66, they had not seen Clone Wars. At least to me, like, you hadn't seen Clone Wars, or especially certain seasons of Star Wars Rebels or other pieces of Star Wars media, because is what Obi-Wan Kenobi did with Order 66 was honestly tame. It was tame in comparison to what other shows have done. And Andor also being a prime example, and the unfortunate backlash that others, including adults and big content creators, even made against Andor season 1 and season 2, despite it giving a very real, visceral depiction of what a dictatorship, a tyrannical rule does, of what it can be. Saying it's too much to show. I'm like, no, that if Andor was a more mature show, and it's something that we need to be able to view, be able to take. And yes, some things are too much. Some people aren't able to see that. I get that. And if that's not for someone to see, to an extent, at some point, the responsibility goes to yourself. The responsibility goes to yourself to turn it off or look away, to pick something else. You can't rely on entertainment. You can't rely fully on entertainment to give you what you're comfortable with. You also have to have a level of responsibility yourself, of to know what you can and can't take, and back away or step away if it's something you're not willing to do. I would give the example personally of Agatha all along. And the reason for me why I don't is just because I'm not into magic, occult, dark magic, all that. Because I'm not one for that kind of stuff. And as I likely stated in your Jurassic Park video, because I'm not that big on gore, violence, and bleak stories like Godzilla Minus One, I'm willing to take it to an extent, but otherwise I'm going to see a bit more lighthearted stories, and that's just me. But that also doesn't mean I want to be just curated in a box. I don't want to just be in a box where I only view the stuff that I'm comfortable with. Andor being a prime example for me, because there were parts in the show where I wondered, like I'm bored at this. How long is this going to take? But I kept going with it. I let it keep going, and to see if it would pay off, and it paid off every time. To me, it paid off every time. Every time I had doubts about the show, I said, let me just stick in there just a little bit longer. Let me just stick in there, and I don't regret it. Because to me, Andor is one of, if not the best piece of Star Wars media ever made. While the Clone Wars is my personal favorite piece of Star Wars media, Andor is better. I do say Andor is hands down better, in my opinion. So, and like how people reacted to Andor season 2, especially, and the assault scene. It's like the people who wanted to say it was too much. It's like, or the excuses, or some of the excuses, or mental gymnastics, and you likely know what I'm talking about, Mr. Gramuglia. The mental gymnastics some people pulled with that scene, or the Empire doing it, it was proof of what some other content creators claimed around that same time, or when Ahsoka was coming out, that Star Wars fans need to grow, and Star Wars itself needs to grow. I don't feel like Star Wars needs to ditch what it's been doing. It doesn't need to ditch everything that it's done. It doesn't need to ditch it or be disrespectful about it. They just need to grow. They need to move forward, and part of that being going away from the Skywalker saga and telling other stories. Is, yes, keep giving us things with Sith, Jedi, etc., but also give us stuff like Andor, where it's like the normal people of the galaxy, or pilots, or droids, other ideas, other stuff, not just not just the Jedi and the Sith. It's because because lately I can't agree that Star Wars took this grand universe and made it feel small when it should feel huge. Anyway, now I've said all of that. I've said all of that. So how now the last one. How would I make a Disney villain that could stand next to Captain Hook, Maleficent, Jafar, Yzma, the Queen of Hearts, Scar, Ursula, Gaston, Cruella De'Vil, Hades, Red from overly sarcastic productions would likely put Professor Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective in there, and Schaefer Productions would probably put Tamatoa in that list. What would I do to make it the best? Make my own Disney character? Well, and this is probably just a bad idea, but I would want to make a character who is like a avatar. Like think of it almost like Moon Knight or Juggernaut. A an avatar of a mighty being, such as how Juggernaut is a avatar of Sidorak through the gem of Sidorak, where as long as Juggernaut causes destruction and mayhem and chaos, at least in their initial comics, up until I think current ones where he's more of a hero and his own man, that as long as he makes destruction, causes chaos, he's doing what his master wants. That's the kind of villain I would think of. But the way he looks, I would, and how he acts, I would almost want to base it around. I wouldn't want to base it around the villains on this screen or some of the other champions, because I think it would put too much expectation from the audience. They would put expectation on this villain and too much weight on my shoulders. I would honestly base it around the villain Medusa from the Rescuers, and the reason I say that is because thinking back on the movie, Medusa is a very intimidating character when I think about it, because the things that she does in the film. One, she has two crocodiles as sidekicks and Snoops, but the two crocodiles, Nero and Brutus, that's an instant standout. But the thing she was willing to do, she kidnapped Penny, a 12-year-old girl, basically put her into slave labor to go into the dark hole of a pirate's cave to get the devil's eye. And no matter how many other jewels, diamonds, pearls that she brought up, none of that was worth it. Only the devil's eye diamond, showing great pride and greed, which would be her downfall. I wouldn't say she's a discount Cruella De'Vil. I would just say she's a different Cruella De'Vil, because she does have rather almost flashy fashion. She has outbursts, much like Cruella De'Vil. She has a domineering presence, and I would say like the things that she does in the film by today's standards would be rather problematic, like emotionally manipulating Penny, saying she's basically saying she's worthless, no one would ever want to adopt her, or saying I'm the only person who would care about you, when full on she's lying. All she wants is the diamond, and she proves it at the end. And other villains have used this weapon, but it seems like Medusa is one of a few Disney villains who actively used a gun in the movie. At least to me, it seems like she fired it more than many other characters. Like Captain Hook used a gun, but only once at the beginning of the film. Then you have Clayton, who used it likely the most effectively. Clayton used it the most effectively, while Medusa just fired off random shots. It didn't barely hit anything. Um, and like throughout the course of the end of the film, like it shows how far she's willing to go with it. Like she's willing to kill, whether it be Snoops or Penny, and then through her own greed, using the rope, holding onto her snowmobile to whip Brutus and Nero, making her greed her downfall, turning her only two pets and only allies left against her, where she likely possibly died being eaten by her own pets. So her own downfall was her greed. So I would want to base my villain around that. Like make him a servant of a bigger or evil being, but as long as he's causing chaos, misery, he's doing the job of his master. And the big thing about him would be he he would make promises. He would make promises to those he views as lesser. Those he views as lesser, he would lesser than him. He would make these promises that he knows he can give. He makes promises that he can provide. Right? He doesn't promise just to lie, but the crutch, the crutch of it is that he thinks that because he's so powerful and he's shown how much power he has, and he gives the ones under him what they want, he thinks they'll be satisfied with what he gives them, and that they would never try to attack him. And the best way I would put it is how Darth Sidious, Darth Maul, and Savage Opress are, where my villain thinks he's Darth Maul, and his master is Darth Sidious. He knows he can't stand up to him, so he doesn't see a point in trying to stand up to him. He just wants to be at his master's side, but he views everyone beneath him as Savage Opress, where he shows his level of power, and that he's better than them, and he promises things that he can give, and he gives them that, but he never considers that the ones he views that are lesser than him would dare try to take his power from him or try to betray him. He never thinks of that. He's so focused on the heroes. He's so focused on his opponents that he doesn't expect a stab from behind, and that would be his downfall. He would think, I gave you everything you wanted. Why would you want more? He underestimates his subsidiaries' greed. He underestimates their greed. And that's how I would at least have his defeat come. If he were to be defeated, that's how it would be. The ones that he promised everything they wanted, and he does give it to them, he doesn't expect them to be so greedy as to try to attack him and take his power. So, at least to me, but the way he would look is much like Medusa, an almost normal looking person, except for what he wears and his eyes. I would have the eyes be like this yellow, almost snakish look, almost in between like Maleficent and Jafar, taking Jafar's eyes in a way and giving it a more glowing Maleficent yellow glow. And the stuff he would wear would be like these powerful looking, like maybe a cape or a hood or a trench coat or something along the lines. For example, say maybe what something Loki would wear, but not to the point where it's like he does make it look like he's one above of all, but there would be one part of his design that would say he's not completely whole, or there's something missing. For example, a crown that would say that he is the best. It's because he knows he's not. So anyway, hopefully all that the rambling I just said makes any sense. And to Mr. Anthony Gramuglia, if you do see this video, I thank you so much. I hope I didn't waste your time, because the last thing I want to do is waste anyone's time. But I wanted to know, at some point you'll likely make the video, and if you happen to see this one, I would be curious, how would you craft a Disney villain, and do any of the points that I brought out previously make any sense? Do they play at all into this? And if you do have counters to my argument, please share them. I am open to be wrong. And same with anyone else viewing this video. Or if you have disagreements with this, please. This is not an echo chamber. I do not want an echo chamber. I want a discussion. So thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you have a great day. And to all my legends out there, I'll see y'all in the next one.